Hey, everybody. Welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to discuss the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co host, Zach.
Greetings,
What's up?
everyone. It's fucking hot as balls, and I have to go outside
Indeed.
to water plants, and it's so unfair because I don't have enough soaker hose to get it all.
I actually Brooke helped me put up an easy up today so that I could work outside because there was a project
You're just
that,
gonna
like,
carry it with you as you go.
No. I was working in a very specific area. I
Okay.
was putting some concrete blocks as like pavers to
Gotcha.
move the pond, which had been sitting up on stickers. Like, we have
Yes.
that livestock tank. You remember livestock tank pond.
Yes. I remember helping a lady in order to acquire that.
Yeah, retrieving it using the rental truck that you had rented or whatever for a different purpose. But we're like, sweet, we got a truck. Let's do it real quick.
Go.
At any rate, yeah, so I had to turn that over, and we needed to get more fish because the fish had died over the winter. And yeah, so that was just a lot of work, and I wanted to put pavers and shit under it so I could properly set it against the house, center it on the back of the brick on the fireplace.
Yeah.
So that we can, stack old Coke bottles or whatever on the little brick ledge and have the pond. And I got rid of a shit ton of the plants, probably half the fucking plants. Because it was full, man. And that was part of the reason we lost the fish. Like, we either had to fucking top it off every single day because all the plants were respirating or whatever.
Right.
And evaporation, even though it was mostly in the shade.
That doesn't stop it. I got the turtle pot.
Yeah, and it just overgrows the pots it's in, and the roots like basically took all the little bricks that we used to kind of raise stuff up off the bottom. All of those got encompassed in root masses, and the whole tank was pretty much a root mass. So
it's actually pretty badass.
Yeah, I just kind of saw it into like 1 or 2 inch thick pieces, irregular pieces, as I try and cut it apart. And then we use those on the top of the worm bin. This is the second time we've harvested roots and laid them out on the top of the worm bin.
Okay.
And it helps keep it moister, and the worms fucking love it, dude, because they all like are on top of the mostly castings right under those roots, just like going through it. So.
And it's got to be full of, fish poo and stuff like that. So
it's
very nutritious for them.
Yeah, and a good source of water right in the middle of the heat. So at any rate, we've spent several minutes talking about something that's not important, and we have a bunch of shit to talk about tonight.
So much shit.
Oh my god. What are we talking about?
Climate change shit. Your tracker. Climate change shit. War shit. Ron
quick addendum
shit.
To the SGA WGA strike.
Yeah, and then of course Ahsoka.
And then the Ahsoka trailer dropped like last week. But since we don't get together that often, or it dropped 4 or 5 days ago, I think. Since we don't get together that often, we are always behind everybody else that reviews trailers and shit. And we're okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to not watch trailers at all, so I'm watching trailers for y'all.
Anybody that wants to watch Star Wars content's not going to watch our show anyway.
That's true.
Even though we talk about Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need to take advantage of like shorts and like clipping shows into segments.
I got nothing better to do.
All right, we'll talk about it. Let's get into it. Climate change. So a quick update on all the crazy shit. I think last week we showed a clip of the rain in Vermont, correct?
Yes. Yep.
There are now
3 dead, I believe. 3 dead and 5 missing.
Okay, it was 3 dead. Great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, not great, but
fantastic.
I think 3 is what I said last week. I was like, I thought I heard 3.
Yeah,
we weren't sure. At any rate, sure. So Reuters did like a nice short that like did like a around the world kind of thing, because there's been a shit ton of flooding in South Korea. And obviously there's fires in Canada and heat waves and fires in the Mediterranean.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's fucking crazy. And then we have a piece from the Climate Emergency Forum kind of explaining some things about that and really kind of like feeling that industrial society grew at that exponential growth curve, right? And there was a delay, but because we exponentially increased our oil consumption, even with a delay in the climate system, there was an exponential input of fucking carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. And we're starting to feel that non-linear response in a real fucking visceral way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. 105
so
here.
Yep. So Climate Emergency Forum is going to explain the mechanism or a potential mechanism for that, or at least quantify what the Reuters clip says. Then Ron Perlman responded to that executive. I want to say it might have been a Disney. It might have been Bob Iger. I'm not sure. Because I saw a couple other interviews with him, and I wasn't sure if he was the one that had said the idea is to drag the writers' strike out and basically crush them, like make them homeless.
Yeah.
Just run them out of money and then win.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that is the tactic of the rich. When you have all the assets, you can wait.
Yeah, and so Ron Perlman kind of chimed in response to that specific idea that the executives were expressing, that they were just going to fucking wait it out and bankrupt them and take the hit until it, because it's easier for them to take a short-term hit than to like actually give concessions and give more of the value that those workers create to them. And then we're going to finish up with some Ukraine stuff. A guy I follow, he's an embedded journalist in Russia named Patrick Lancaster, has a viewer-supported embedded journalism, independent journalist or whatever. And he interviewed, it wasn't in his show notes, it said Director General, but it was actually, I think, a spokesperson for the Director General's office, because I looked up the Rosatom, Russian state nuclear agency or whatever. It's the private power company that operates the reactors, or operates mini reactors in the former Soviet Union, part of the privatization scheme, no doubt, in the early 90s. At any rate, it wasn't the Director General as I could find images of him on Google. I think it was a spokesperson for his office. So just to clarify the information that I discovered to set that up. But anyway, so we're going to talk about that, talk about Zaporozhye nuclear power plants and happenings around that. Even though it's somewhat old news, I think one of the things we strive to do here is to apply critical thinking skills and kind of approach everything from a like, all right, everybody has interests, like the kind of realist approach to international affairs rather than the sensationalist. And so this is a nice little piece of information that should assuage people's fears and panics, which you would be happy to know. It's becoming much more evident and much more common in the Canadian prepper comment thread for people to push back or fucking make fun of him. Yeah, you would be happy to know, because I think you had mentioned something about like, geez.
Yeah.
A little sensationalist, huh?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the end of the world.
Yeah. Calm down.
Even tomorrow's the end of the world. Like, it might not end. You have 2 weeks. You can wait for me to ship you some shit when you buy it from me.
Yeah, right? Like, it's the end of the world, but buy some shit.
Yeah. At any rate.
Kevin Costner
a little bit on the war. And I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And then we're going to watch the Ahsoka trailer, because why not?
Because I haven't seen it.
Let's go.
Great. Oops, wrong one. There we go.
Torrential rain in South Korea, record heat in the US, and wildfires in Europe. I'm Kim Vanell, host of Reuters World News podcast, and here's how the climate emergency is playing out right now, and what the world's two biggest greenhouse gas emitters are doing about it. This is
Check shit.
Punta Gorda in the Canary Islands. The extreme temperatures there are similar to that in southern Europe, which is facing a potentially deadly heat wave. But the opposite in South Korea, where torrential rain has caused landslides and flooding. And in the US, there's an extreme heat warning out, affecting more than a quarter of the population. US climate envoy John Kerry is meeting his Chinese counterpart this week to try and boost cooperation on curbing emissions. And they're under pressure. Scientists say the target of keeping global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels is moving beyond reach. Listen to Reuters World News podcast on Spotify, Apple, or on the Reuters.
Do that.
Let's fact check Reuters.
Okay.
First fact check.
Two largest
Probably the
emitters.
only fact check. What's that?
You talking about what do you want to fact check?
Oh, just the, we're moving beyond the ability to stay within 1.5 C. And I think that our next clip will talk about global average temperature. So we can leave it to that, but essentially that 1.5 is almost beyond reach. Like we kind of already accept that it's beyond reach, which is why Obama's like, oh, 3.0 is better than 3.5.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're like, not many people are even saying 1.5 anymore, which is what we've been saying here for a while too.
Yeah, I'm hearing 2.5.
Yeah, if global society rapidly collapsed, whether nuclear war or massive economic breakdown and civil unrest and famine, right, which is a clip we're going to play later on today, talking about the Black Sea grain initiative and some kind of geopolitical implications of the conflict there in Ukraine. But at any rate, we're looking at 2.5, 3, 3.54, and most people are just like, meh. Even if industrial society collapsed really quickly, we're probably at least 3.5. If we kick the can with big lithium mines and all this other shit, if we try and kick the can on this, we're probably in true like non-sensationalist, like extinction level kind of shit, especially for how quick it's changing. So let's see what the folks over at Climate Emergency Committee, what do they call it? Forum. Thank you. Yeah. And it's mostly this host, and she mostly talks to the same handful of people. This is Paul Beckwith, the guy I'm always like, oh, let's talk about the article he talks about because it's interesting, but let's not play a clip of his show because he's rather slow and boring. Nice guy, but just not clippable stuff. Yeah. So we got him talking right here as an interviewee rather than as a live streamer, where the forum is different in this case. Go ahead.
Yeah. Encourages him to be faster.
Right. Think of what happens when you crack an egg over and expose it to 50-degree temperatures. Heat. The clear part of the egg turns white, and this is basically denaturation of the protein molecules. They become broken and all twisted, and make the egg clear part of the egg go white. And this is actually happening. These chemical breakdowns can actually start occurring in the human body when we reach those sort of temperatures, 50 degrees plus. So we have that to be concerned with. Yeah, there's only so much
that was really common in
the human body can take.
Oh, yeah. In order to stop it, we had a lot of Black Flag days where it was just like, you don't go outside, you don't exercise. Polish your boots.
We had a lot of those too.
Hold your clothes. Yeah. Well, I went in July in Great Lakes, Illinois, where it's like massive humidity and 100 and some odd degree weather. Not great.
Physiology, let alone the animals and plant species that are they're way outside their.
I see all the birds in my backyard panting. It's so sad. I can't do anything about it.
They need a Raspberry Pi fucking automated bird cooling machine.
Bird cooler.
Their comfortable niche with these sort of conditions. James Hansen was talking about how the planet was warming 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade. And Peter just mentioned that, if you compare this June to the previous June, we increased about 0.18 degrees Celsius. That's in 1 year, let alone a decade. And Hansen's paper, Global Warming in the Pipeline, also clearly shows that according to their numbers, the rate of temperature rise is no longer 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade. It's 50 to 100% higher than that. So it's somewhere between 0.27 and 0.36 degrees Celsius per decade from 2010 onwards. You know, we're also getting very non-uniform, non-linear heating. Some parts of the world are hit worse than others, but the heat is widespread. And it is too early really to be attributable just to the El Nino, because the El Nino is just really getting going. So bad as things are today, I think in a year we'll do a video or maybe sooner and say, it's unbelievable how we blew away these records that were set back in 2023 in June. Another thing.
Yeah, and that's something to think about too, is like everything gets hot, everything gets dry. The carbon sinks we already have start to burn. That's nonlinear right there.
Yeah, and nonlinear in the sense that, like, you know, and I heard it again on Jimmy Dore's show today, and I've heard other people say it, like making fun of Greta Thunberg or whatever. We talked about it here and how ridiculous it is. It's like, no, what she was saying is that if we don't fucking severely and transformationally curtail carbon emissions, it will be too late.
Yeah.
To prevent it. And that's, for all intents and purposes, what we were just discussing, or what Paul Beckwith was saying, right? He's like, we forecast a rate of 0.18 per decade.
Right.
We've measured 0.18 from 13 months ago.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah.
And so he's like, we're looking at probably almost a degree per decade. So some folks like to say, oh, climate change is natural. The planet goes through cycles, which is true. And when you look at periods of rapid warming in the geologic past, rapid warming of like 6 or 8 or 10 degrees C, rapid in the geologic sense is like 50,000 years.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you're like, yes, it was rapid in the geologic record, and a lot of shit changed in that 50,000 years due to that climate change and that warming.
Yeah.
But that was still 50,000 years. How many generations of cockroaches and birds and other things? At least 50,000, right? For most organisms. Maybe some trees only had a factor less than that or whatever. Or organisms like humans that take a long time to breed and reach sexual maturity. At any rate, like, it's incomprehensible how fucking fast this is happening. And like, nature is resilient, but like, and nature adapts to change, but none of those changes have been this rapid ever.
Right.
So we don't know what the consequences are throughout the entirety of the system. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot worse for the current megafauna. Like, it takes an elephant like 14 to 17 years to become sexually mature. Yep. Humans are typically like
12. 14.
Yeah, average 12. Yeah, and with all the chemicals in the moo juice, it's even earlier.
Moo juice. I love
damn moo juice making them have the periods when they're 10. So,
all right, let's play this and talk about this, and then I'm going to step away to get more water. I was outside all day, so I'm like trying to be hyper conscious about it.
Gotcha.
Hydrating.
Yeah.
At any rate, and I'll have you read the crux stuff, because that's the first one to go into after this.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sure.
The motherfucker.
Oh, pause. This is, as we said at the top, Ron Perlman's response to the CEO, whoever was the one who said it,
the Hollywood
that played the Joker clip that was actually a CEO's dialogue that they just clipped with the Joker, because it is something a maniacal villain would say. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then this is his response, because Ron Perlman is pretty outspoken about a lot of shit.
Yep. We said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial. Some of it is karma. And some of it is just figuring out who the fuck said that. And we know who said that. And where he fucking lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 fucking million a year for creating nothing.
Creating nothing.
Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful.
Creating profit for
'Cause
shareholders.
that's the kind of shit that stirs shit up.
Whoa. So, yeah, going all in there. Now, Ahsoka, he did walk it back a bit and clarify his comments.
Yeah, what did he say?
And actually, the clarification was also
Very little
phenomenal.
bit.
He says, I don't wish anybody any harm. I hope the a-hole who made that comment also doesn't wish anybody any harm. But when you start going around and saying we're not even going to bargain with these effing dickheads until they start effing bleeding and their families start bleeding. I mean, if you want to talk about some of the shit that makes people so cynical and so pissed off with our current climate, I mean, this strike is just sort of a symptom of a struggle that's way bigger than the strike itself. It's a symptom of the soullessness of corporate America, how everything has become corporatized in this country. So yeah, I'm being very clear. I never mentioned one name. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but stop with the bullshit because all you're doing is you're effing killing what's beautiful in this country by putting a price on everything.
Do we hear with
That's his
Thunder's
follow-up
podcast
to criticism. Sorry, what was that?
Said, do we hear it with Thunder's Applause podcast encourage doxing someone? No. Would we appreciate it? Yeah, we would.
Do we fetishize nonviolence and would therefore take offense to a statement like that? Nope. Because I think that the position of this show is that we're past time for torches and pitchforks. I mean, shit, we just talked about fucking how fast this climate change is, and like the people in power are just gonna write it out because they're like, I can fucking live the high life until I'm not alive anymore, and then fuck it, what does it matter? I'm dead. Yeah, that's how selfish they are.
Yeah. Well, my wife likes to say that. I have it. Nope, I fucked it up. Oh man, I can't remember what it was. Oh well.
Anyway. All right, we're moving on to Russia. Correct? Did you have anything else on that statement? WA straight?
Nope. I appreciate the statement by Ron Perlman. I'm glad that when he walked it back, he was just as much of an asshole about it. That is in character for him. So I mean,
it was an apology that wasn't an apology. That's what I fucking loved about it.
Yeah. He was just like, fuck him.
It's like, no, you're fucking assholes. You're just rich motherfuckers they're literally wishing harm on people's families. People who just have mortgages, unlike you, who is like maybe concerned about financing your third yacht. Right, like, so anyway, we're moving on to Ukraine news, which is our last bit before Ahsoka trailer. The first item is a Black Sea grain initiative, which you'll kind of gather through this clip from Crux. You'll gather that it essentially lays out that it was an agreement between Turkey, Ukraine, and Russia to be able to like provide safe passage to shipping vessels, in particular grain shipments out, because as we learned with the Arab Spring, right, and Ukraine had a really bad drought, and Ukraine and Russia had bad droughts, and they cut exports to ensure that their own populations had access to food, which is a fucking smart move. But when like most of North Africa and the Middle East and shit rely on that to feed their people, like they're in a tough spot. So then, that helped, was one of the factors that precipitated the Arab Spring, was just food price inflation.
Yeah.
And we've had food price inflation here in the United States, a significant amount of it. Somebody said it was slowing down. I don't track prices week to week. So I don't know. It definitely feels it's obvious. You can walk in and get groceries and it's obviously more expensive, but at any rate, how will this affect global prices? And one of the themes of this show is how collapse is like a stair step, and sometimes you can walk down them abruptly, right?
Yeah, well,
foot, and sometimes
I'm sure,
tumble.
yeah, I'm sure all of us have thought there was one fewer step than there really was, and taken a bit of a tumble.
Exactly. So this is just one of those things where there's this conflict. as we've discussed many times before, that the U.S. was a party to, based on the sequence of events and the realities of global politics. But here is who gets hurt, right? It is Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. It is civilians in the East and the West. It is places abroad where refugees are flooding into, right? Like, it's a big fucking mess. But this global grain thing is a big deal because, like, as we've said before, like, hungry people are dangerous people, or, you know, it doesn't take that long. A few days. At any rate, so you're gonna read through the captions on this, and I will be right back.
Alrighty. Russia's foreign ministry notified Ukraine, Turkey, and the UN without Russia's participation. The Black Sea Initiative ceases to function from July 18th. Unfortunately, the part of the Black Sea agreements concerning Russia has not been implemented so far. As soon as the Russian part of the agreement is fulfilled, the Russian side will return to the implementation of this deal immediately. Moscow has complained that the promises to free up its own shipments of food and fertilizers had not been kept. Moscow said, only upon receipt of concrete results and not promises and assurances will Russia be ready to do something. Reconsider or to consider restoring the deal. Russia has denied and suspended the Black Sea Grain Initiative because of Ukrainian attack on the Kerch Bridge. President Zelensky said Ukraine is willing to extend the Black Sea grain deal even without Russia. Even without the Russian Federation, we need to do everything we can to make sure it is possible to use the Black Sea corridor. We're not afraid. Companies that own ships have contacted us and said they are prepared to continue supplying grain if Ukraine is willing to release it, and Turkey will let it through. Such a terrible area. The EU condemned Russia's decision to suspend Black Sea grain export deal. Has been condemned as a cynical move. I can't read this fast. I'm going to slow it down.
I am so sorry to say that today Russia has refused to prolong this deal. And this is something very serious that will create a lot of troubles to many people around the world. We, from our side, we will do everything we can through our solidarity lanes in order to make available the Ukrainian grain for the people who eat from it. And I have to blame Russia for this decision, completely unjustified, weaponizing the hunger of the people.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Russia's decision to suspend the Black Sea grain deal risks causing global suffering. The UK called the move very disappointing and added that Moscow will be robbing millions of people of access to vital grain. Russian Foreign Ministry said Moscow was removing guarantees for safe navigation in the Black Sea. This means the withdrawal of guarantees for the safety of navigation, the curtailment of maritime humanitarian corridor, the restoration of the regime of a temporarily dangerous area in the northwestern Black Sea, and the disbandment of the JCC, Joint Coordination Center, in Istanbul. Without Russia's participation, the Black Sea Initiative ceases to function from July 18th.
And that was the Russian Foreign Ministry statement.
Yeah. Turkish President Erdogan said once back from a foreign tour that he will urge his friend Putin to participate. And that's that.
And that was that. So what I thought was really interesting is that there's this common theme where, like, with the Minsk Accords or whatever, we discussed how Boris Johnson was sent by the U.S. to tank those peace talks. There were peace talks that were taking place in Turkey. I'm sorry. There's many abuses where Russia withdrew troops from Kiev or near Kiev, right, as a good faith measure towards this negotiation, and then they're like, just kidding, we're just buying ourselves time. And so Russia's like, all right, we said that as a condition of us agreeing to this thing, this is what we were going to get. and you haven't delivered, and you now have created a precedence for not delivering when on your side, right, of a negotiation. And so we're just going to shut it down.
Yeah.
And that's,
I think it's interesting that they're like, oh yeah, you know, you're condemning the world to starve and blah, blah. And it's like, what about their people? You know, like, do they have strategic reserves of grain available, or do they need it immediately as well?
I think they produce a lot of grain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that it's like, it's a very different conflict from what we as Americans especially think of as conflict, which is like US projecting power somewhere else, but like not needing resources other than to keep the oil flowing, right? Like they don't need food produced there or anything like that. They're shipping 747 loads of fucking stuff out there. So at any rate, yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting that they're like, hey, we're pulling out, and it kind of sucks. And then in that clip, of course, they're like, and the UK says this, and the EU says this, and blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, oh, shame on you for, you know, for starving people for your political gain. And it's like, what the fuck were you doing when you're like, we're going to overthrow this government that is, you know, denying our liberalization program that we want to impose on them, our neoliberal shock therapy.
I mean, it's a pretty shitty point of view from a bunch of capitalists. I mean, like, hey, why are you withholding stuff? Possibly, you know, driving the price up. Oh, I don't fucking know. So we can get more money. Like, I get, you know, humanitarian aid and everything, but like, you've crafted a world that is dog eat fucking dog, and you're surprised when the dog bites.
Yeah, or it's just, you know, feigned kind of concern for populations that if you were concerned about populations, you wouldn't have supported fringe elements, you know, of discontent within the country to overthrow the government and wage a proxy war. If you really cared about people, you would have avoided it with diplomacy and figured out a solution.
Or they do like Belgium did, and they'd say, you know, we're committed to providing food. Like, that's the only country from that clip anyway that actually said, like, hey, you know, we'll work to feed people. Everybody else was just like, shame, shame, shame. Right.
They're like, I guess we have to fucking help them or whatever. Yeah. For sure. At any rate, you know, it was just a thing. I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what the trickle down effects are going to be with all this heat. Like, whatever local production could potentially be affected, heat and drought, right? I'm sure with all the fires and stuff in Greece, and there's probably going to be, you know, an olive oil crop that's not as productive.
Oh no, I need my olive oil.
Yeah, and so how does that affect people's diets? Like, and what does that mean, right? Because like on the curve of the limits to growth, we're about peak population. So that means deaths are going to exceed births real soon, according to the model, which is tracked fairly consistently over the last 50 years almost now. So at any rate, we're moving on. Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. It was.
Well, I would say that you asked, you know, like, hey, what's going to happen? Well, I can tell you that regardless of whether or not food supplies are steady or not, we're going to see prices rise because the companies that make the food know that we're prepped to think that things are going to be more scarce, and they'll be like, okay, cool. Prices are rising because things are more scarce, I guess.
Yeah.
Record profits.
For sure. I think there's an element of that too. And it's just it just shows like in a complex social system, right? Like the whole idea of complexity and what I was explaining last Thursday about how like everything is so complex, like this tension we feel in the air is really part of this unraveling. Mm-hmm. It's like things becoming less complex. This is what it feels like. And the way that things become less complex is that the complex system doesn't deliver and people have to figure out a different fucking way to do it. You know, and people hurt while that happens. I mean, people in North Africa and the Middle East and whatnot, and in Africa that rely on those imports are going to suffer. And will they overthrow their governments? Will their governments be taken over by like religious fascist movements, either Islamic or Christian fascist, of which those movements are present and organized on the continent?
Yeah, much more organized than anything else. Yeah.
This is the warlordism that always follows the collapse of a complex society.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it be born.
Yeah. We've been seeing
Let's
it
talk
for our
about
entire lives.
Zaporozhye. So to preface this is the Patrick Lancaster clip. He's an independent embedded journalist. I think I might become a patron just to support his work. Because what he's doing is really interesting and kind of rad. He just released a hour and 30-minute documentary of him going to the front line and basically hanging out in the trenches for 2 days. Or it was like a day and a half or whatever it was. So I thought that was really interesting. And he was in at the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. That's the power plant in the background. And he talked to a spokesperson for the director general's office, as I was describing before. I think I didn't catch the name of this guy, and none of the photos were matching up with the director general. So I'm like, I think he must be a spokesperson.
Yeah.
At any rate, it's a very good interview. Go to the show notes, click the description, watch the whole thing. He talks to some locals too. He is a journalist, so he's getting a local opinion, and it's kind of interesting to hear different perspectives. I thought it was really interesting. He interviewed 2 women, and as soon as he asked their opinion about the moral question in the war, like who is right and this, that, and the other thing, they're like, oh, I'm done, peace. They like would not offer their opinion, but then they talked to some other kind of guys who did. And this is a spokesperson for the power plant, the company that runs the power plant, Rosatom. I think it's Rosatom, Rosatom. And anyway, he says a lot of things. And one thing that I wanted to draw attention to was kind of this scaremongering around like, or not just scaremongering, but also a potential seeding people's brains with a false flag.
Yeah.
Is that what you kind of were assuming the earlier discussions of it? Like, they're going to mine it and they're putting radiation detectors all over the place just because they are like expecting it to blow up or make a dirty bomb or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm just like, that's not how nuclear power plants work. But okay, guys. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could potentially get into the spent fuel and use it for a dirty bomb though, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get into the unspent fuel and fuck around with it enough to make it a dirty bomb, but like, why bother when there's, much more readily available sources within Russia?
Yeah.
You want to make a dirty bomb, make a dirty bomb. I mean, if the goal is to retake the area, you don't want to irradiate the area, make it uninhabitable.
That's kind of what this guy says. He's like, why would Russia blow this up? Like, because technically the wind blows that way towards them. And he's like, and that's not how radiation works. He's like, that's something that the fucking Kiev regime would say, who have no fucking idea. Russia's going to blow up your thing and totally hurt them, just like they blew up the dam to totally hurt them.
Absolutely. Winky.
And the Nord Stream pipeline to hurt them, right?
Yeah.
To hurt their own economy. It's fucking absurd. At any rate, there was a couple good clips out of this, so we're going to watch 2. I think it totals like 2.5 minutes. Let's
2.5 minutes. Yeah. A lot of things that can only be called profanation. As a rule, such rumors are created by people who have never been to the nuclear power plant. They have no idea how this happened, Unfortunately, these are Western technologies, including American ones, of information. Influence, information manipulation. Oh, when a lie doesn't have any sense. The aim is different. They have many media platforms and spreading channels, so they start to spread them. But unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunately, it's just as it is. People are distant from the Go fast. I gotta read slower. Understanding of the real situation. What is the plant? What is the radiation? And they use it. There is a good Russian proverb for this case. The more terrible the lie is, the easier one can believe it. That's the case. Let's see what this lie is about. That is like so true, though. Like,
yeah, and
even here, people just want to believe like ridiculous lies.
Right. Like, again, to the climate change and going back, because Jimmy Dore said the same thing, because apparently like the Irish government wants to kill like 250 cows to help with climate change, which to me makes no fucking sense. That sounds sensationalized.
Right.
Like they might say we can do two birds with one stone, and like maybe food prices are so high, and so they're gonna like kind of almost like buy out elderly farmers who want to retire, basically.
Did you say 250, like 250?
I thought it was $250,000. Was it mini million? Did you?
Oh, no. You only said 250, not 250,000.
No.
Okay.
Like $250,000 or something.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. I was like, what fucking difference would that make?
I don't know what the situation is, and you can't just be like, oh, they want to do it for climate change. They just want to screw these farmers. In the thing you just read, they literally said they would be buying out elderly farmers who want to get out.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, having tried to buy a dairy from someone who wanted to get out of the cow business, I'm very familiar with people aging out of the cow business. It's fucking hard work.
Right.
It's really hard work, and you never get a break.
You're almost aged out of the cow business, dude.
What's that?
I said you're almost aged out of the cow business. Both of us are almost aged out of a lot. Like realistically, both of us are aged out of a lot of shit.
No, that's my parents were like, oh, we want to get property in Idaho, like get 20 acres that we can build up. And it's like, you guys are 70.
Yeah. What the
You're
fuck
not building up nothing.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, go in with me and let's get a vacation property, right? Turn it into a church so we don't pay taxes.
Yep.
Then become a monastery. Zach and his wife move out. And then we fucking build a gun range there and a temple and like a fucking sacred circle for ceremonies.
You can go shooting and be married on the same day.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have all sorts of cool fucking nature trails and all sorts of shit with signage, and it would just be a fucking church. We live there, we take care of it, and then we get fucking, dirt worshipers and shit out of the Bay Area to come up on the weekends for fucking ceremonies or whatever.
And thousands of dollars.
No, I think the one I would model it after, the Four Quarters Interfaith Sanctuary.
Right. Yeah.
I think their memberships were $60 a year or something like that.
I meant the people coming up from the Bay Area who weren't actually members.
Even then, camping, I think they charged us $25 a night for camping.
Oh, it's not bad.
At a private campground, which is like, that's how much a state campground is. We'd probably price it at just above state campground if the facilities were at or slightly above state campground standards.
Yeah, which they would be.
At any rate, so yeah, there's another clip from him talking to this guy where he kind of goes into that terrible lie of why would Russia.
Got a little bit more on this one, actually.
Oh, okay, great.
It's just a little bit. So let's see what this lie is about. Let's take, for example, this claim about roof mining. Let's look carefully at the second power unit. It's right in front of us. There is kind of a glass. I wish I knew what he was saying. Inside of the unit, right? This glass inside is an additive, a protective shell of the unit, which is called containment. This means, first of all, the thickness of the walls. They are made of exhaust concrete, reinforced concrete, and the roofs can withstand, as there are hostilities nowadays, the heaviest part of a plane or engine rubber. So basically it says, like, hey, this is designed towards like earthquake standards, impact standards, just like, the Twin Towers were designed to be resistant to impact and stuff like that.
But not jet fuel.
Not jet fuel. But like everything in California is, earthquake reinforced. Like it's the same shit. Like these buildings are not like your office building or your apartment, building. If you live in like a big city and you have like no, this shit's like armored. And so the idea
it has to be that building is meant to contain radiation in the event of a fucking accident.
Yeah,
which means those fucking walls are like whatever 2 or 3 feet thick of reinforced concrete.
Yeah, it's
more,
probably.
Yeah.
I think the standard is like 2 feet of reinforced concrete. You have a shit ton of water to shield things. You got lead. Like you have so many materials to shield things, and it doesn't take much because like on a submarine, they can shield the crew of a submarine inside the size of a submarine. So like, several feet at least. And like, that's not a problem. And that shit's super resistant. And this is on land, so it's even more resistant. Yeah. The idea that
air defenses.
Yeah. The idea that like a single attack or like a non-coordinated attack could possibly do anything is like, no, not gonna happen. These look a lot like one of the buildings where I went to school for nuclear power. It was basically a big sphere. It looked like a Death Star from the distance. And like when they were first creating it, they were like, oh yeah, we don't know what it's going to do exactly, so we're going to shield the fucking hell out of it. And then eventually they were like, oh, that's overkill. We just need some concrete, lead, water. We're good. And so like this is way more than we had there. So like that's some resistant shit. Let's see. Yeah, next part of the clip. You can see Zelensky didn't hide his disappointment about the lack of clear dates of their acceptance to NATO. Nowadays, the whole world, well, not the whole world, and it's important, but NATO countries, in fact, are in war with the Russian Federation.
Of course.
But they still have to make it legal. When they bombed, reminds me of fucking Star Wars. I will make it legal.
Right.
But still, they have to make it legal. They bombed Iraq without UN sanctions. Yugoslavia was bombed without UN sanctions. They did whatever they wished, and he means the NATO bloc. They cannot do the same here, because they understand clearly that they will be punched in the face. I wonder if this is like a direct translation or if that's like an idiom.
It's an idiom.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I think that's what he's saying in Russian, but he just means like, yeah, it is. Yeah. Not fit actual, but like, yeah, punch in the face.
It's fucking. You ever watch Archer?
No.
There's an episode where he tries to become a pirate, and he like keeps communicating in idioms, and his translator's like starts to translate, and he's like, I keep telling you, idioms don't work. And they don't want this, so they have to create a mechanism able to do this legally. All games with Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plants are built around this. I say again, both staff and we who are nearby and provide help won't let a nuclear catastrophe happen. That's it. Thank you so much. And yeah, like their livelihood depends upon this shit working.
Yeah, and I think it was really important to be like, hey, they don't actually understand it. Hey, it's pretty safe. Hey, we're not going to have this. Elsewhere in the interview, he talked about how that threat, though, however, has caused considerable amount of stress to those working there and their families, because they're like, we still have to go there, but we know it's a war target.
Yeah.
Like, or we suspect it's a war target, because the whole reason that they're saying is like, oh, look, you're going to do it. Or, Russia's going to do this thing. Russia's like, why would we do it? We're in fucking control of it. And if it melts down, it's going to hurt us more than it hurts anybody else.
Well, not only that, but if you think about it, like, there's the nuclear power plant that is producing the electricity. And then there's the transmission cables. You don't target the plant, you target the cables. You target the other infrastructure that is not highly threatening, but is easier to take out. Like,
and I want to say that they shut the plant down already.
That is entirely possible. You have to maintain staff to watch for just random excursions that can occur, and then also to keep water flowing over the plant. I'm not sure if it's a pressurized water reactor or not. I'm actually looking it up right now. But if it is, then yeah, like you need like people on hand to make sure that all the systems that keep it subcritical are there to maintain it subcritical.
Do you want to do Ahsoka when we do shooting the poodoo?
We absolutely could. We're at 51 minutes. It's not a bad stopping point.
Yeah, I mean, you can look that up about that, and we can kind of wrap our convo, or we could do it. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah, like I'm not in a rush. I'm just kind of, wanting to be respectful of time, and sometimes Star Wars is better on a shooting the poodoo.
It often is. Yeah, I'd say let's push it off, and then we'll be even later.
I mean, I think it'd still be fun to watch it together, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I want to see what's
most
going
of
on.
Thursday's already planned. We'll plan on doing that for like a half hour.
Exactly.
Maybe try and find one other interesting Star Wars news story, and then watch the trailer, and then that'll be half the show, and then we'll do something else.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
It wasn't until we started planning this that I was like, "Oh fuck, we were supposed to finish Ted Kaczynski."
Yeah,
I totally forgot about it when I started planning this.
We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, since I've been quitting smoking cigs, like I'm not necessarily replacing cigs with weed, but I seem to get a lot more fucking high. I'm also on fucking the medication I'm on to help me quit smoking. Also, like increases the effects of cannabis and alcohol. So,
give me some of that shit.
No,
it actually medicines like that tend to do damage to your body if you mix them.
Blocks your fucking dopamine receptors, which is why one of the more severe side effects is fucking like just mood. Like you're just in a shitty fucking mood. Yeah. Sometimes you have crazy fucking dreams and shit.
Yeah. It's every day for me.
Yeah.
I love my crazy dreams, man.
So at any rate, did you find out, was it a pressurized water reactor?
Oh, how the hell do you spell it?
Because the basic engineering of a nuclear power plant, there's only like a couple of ways to do it, right? And even foreign nuclear power plants will pretty much run them the same way that the US does.
Yeah, let's see. Nuclear power plant, blah, blah, blah. 10 largest, Soviet Union, southern side operated 6. Yep, it is a pressurized light water nuclear reactor. So yeah, you'll have staff on hand. You have to have staff on hand to basically ensure that no excursions into criticality occur and to maintain subsystems that cause water to flow over the reactor, removing residual heat. Because you don't just turn off a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
you basically just kind of babysit it forever. Like that was one of the shittiest parts of being a nuke in the fucking Navy was like, all right, everyone's on shore duty. You stay right the fuck where you are. Watch that reactor. Like I missed a lot of shore time because we had a small staff due to some issues with some shipmates and just kind of got screwed out of a lot of shore leave, man. Could have gotten a lot more diseases if I had more time.
I know. I was going to say, at least you saved yourself some Hep B.
That's true. It's the sea you got to worry about.
All right, man. So today we talked about, we talked about climate change. That's fucking crazy. 1.8 degrees in a year.
0.18.
Sorry. What did I say? 1.8?
Yeah.
I definitely meant 0.18.
That would kill us fast.
But still, 0.18 is a big fucking deal. It's such a big deal.
Yeah.
We also showed you showed at least someone who speaks with radical rhetoric and has the right idea in terms of how we deal with our corporate overlords.
He doesn't have filters. Great.
I mean, but he's not wrong. Like if workers really fought fucking back, the fucking ruling class would be begging to be regulated.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
FDR saved capitalism. I honestly think that's kind of, again, I know I sometimes come across as an RFK simp, but like,
yeah, you do.
I think he could be a guy that could potentially save capitalism. He would make the reforms necessary to keep the system going. And not that that's a good thing.
Right. But we don't necessarily want to keep the system going.
Right. But I mean, like, it's a fucking powder keg right now. And I just feel like, with increasing food prices and global instability, right? America's Occupy Wall Street movement was inspired by the Arab Spring. So like those kinds of protest movements can be transnational. And And I'm all for more street protests, more organized labor, more solidarity strikes.
Yeah.
Like UPS is going to strike soon too. I want to say, what is it, the 1st of August?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, and so they start striking. Will FedEx workers strike with them? Will they join up with actors and stuff to tell stories of drivers or whatever else?
Yeah.
Will they kind of show some solidarity between them?
And I remembered what my wife likes to say, and that is that the rich seem to forget that protests and strikes are the compromise that we reached instead of killing the rich.
I think that was kind of why I thought that fucking statement from Ron Perlman was fucking golden, even though he is probably quite comfortable.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, because yeah, exactly. It's like concessions are like what you offer. It doesn't cost. It costs you very little.
Right, in a big scheme.
And in that's basically, it's an insurance policy on your fucking life.
I believe the quotes that I was hearing were like the total, demanded increase in cost for the studios
as a whole. Yeah,
it is measured in the low tens of millions. So it costs them perhaps 20 to 30 million to satisfy their demands, and they're like, no, nothing else, just no.
Yeah,
fuck that, man. Fuck that.
I wonder how many tech bro consultants they have being like, oh, we can replace these guys, only for them to later find out, like, we just had this thing with Brooke's work, right? She quit working because it was the same thing where they're like, no, we're just going to try and push out the more experienced person that makes more money, and we'll bring in someone that we can pay minimum wage.
Right.
And it's like, you don't realize that the reason that you make money is because we do the work.
Yeah.
And I told them to organize. They didn't want to, and I'm not going to fucking continue to dwell on it because it really kind of like, I saw the signs ahead like months in advance, and I was like, you guys need to get together and have a conversation right now. And they're like, oh no.
Have you ever been to one of the?
It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Like, no, people don't want to organize. They don't.
You ever been to one of the Denny's where they have the robots?
Mm-mm.
One of the Denny's near our house has robots that will carry out plates of food. They don't do the transfer to the customer table, but it's basically like, oh, there's 6 people there. It's a big load. Instead of the waitress having to take it back and forth 3 or 4 times, the robot comes out with everything. She comes out with some more, gives you the food and everything.
And then takes the rest off of his tray.
Yeah. I saw the robot run into someone, and I saw the robot drop food because it like halted too quickly in response to something moving, or its perception of something moving, and a plate slid off. And so like, it ain't perfect. It's not getting like, perfect any quicker. And it's just kind of pissing a lot of people off. Like, I don't really like going to Denny's anymore. It's like, okay. I mean, I see, that's the thing. I'm of two minds. I want to support, people in shitty jobs like that being replaced. But I also, want concessions for us to live before they are replaced. So.
Right. All right, folks. Well, this has been With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where friends get together, talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future, and hopefully approach things with a critical eye and a critical mind and an open heart. And in this, we always like to remind folks, remember that when liberty dies, it dies
with thunderous applause.
And now for your viewing pleasure, a dancing baby Yoda.
Yoda.
Yoda. Grogu.
Can I find Grogu doing yoga?
Yoda doing yoga?
See you Thursday.